Welcome to our other recording of the next book that we're going to be going over in the Open Book Club, which is Khalil Gibran's The Prophet. I think it bears merit to actually give this man an introduction. And I found it very interesting based on when and where he was born. Originally, when I picked up this book, I think the first time that somebody recommended it to me, maybe between the years of maybe 18 to 20, something like that. I always just assumed that this book was much, much, much more older. But ironically enough, Khalil Gibran was born January 6th, 1883 and died April 10th, 1931 in New York. He was a Lebanese-American philosophical essayist, a novelist, a poet, an artist in many other forms. And I think this book not only ties a slew of artwork, but stitches together poetry in such a marvelous way that I'm looking forward to seeing what the discussion today kind of comes about and see the spark that gets lit in a little bit. So I'm going to pass the microphone to whoever wants to share their findings of this small but mighty book. I think the hardcover was about 108 pages. I'm not sure what copy you guys are reading, but it's a very short, condensed read.
Yeah, um well, thank you for the introduction, Abe. Um the copy that I have, I think it's from Khalil Gibran's website, khaliljibran.com, and it's the PDF format. So for whoever is following along in the parts that we do read and cite some pages that might be helpful. But I think it's also like 90 something pages or 100 something pages, so it's quick read. However, it's a book that requires meditations. Like, after reading a certain section, it's the kind of book that you open it to whatever little section, you read what you need to read, and then close it and just meditate on what you just read, kind of a book. Like you, Abe, I read it the first time maybe 10 years ago, also, or a little more than that. 15, yeah, maybe like 12 years ago or something like that. And picking it up again, I can see how the book itself speaks to the individual and where they're at in such a unique way. Because this time around, definitely it illuminated certain things within me that I did not catch the first time. So yeah, and funny enough, I was talking to a teacher of mine, and he was mentioning Khalil Gibran's other book, which was Jesus, the Son of Man, and that's probably be another book that I'll read as well. Which I really haven't delved into his work, other than The Prophet. So yeah, it's exciting. I know, Antoine, you said you read it like also a long time ago.
This book is incredible. I read it so long ago that the only true thing that I could remember about it before reading it again was how it made me feel. And it felt like liberation reading it. Like I was at the same time being set free, but also coming home when I read this book. It's such a distillation of spirituality and mystic teaching without the weight of religiosity. And I think that's what I appreciate most about it, that it can maintain and hold so much gravitas without having to have the weight of religious muddiness to it. And it's not my intention to disrespect religion in saying that, but it's just to kind of like contrast the distillation of spirituality and wisdom and mysticism and education that comes from reading a text like this. I love him as a teacher, but also his craft of putting together prose and poetry in such a seamless marriage. That was an incredible piece of work. Like you, I think I can appreciate it on different levels now, being older and more read and more life experiences, and really see into the value of what he's created here. This is an incredible manuscript. It's a jewel and a gift to anybody who reads it, and you can get from it what this author went through in his life, traveling, being raised the first 12 years of his life in Lebanon, and who his mother was, and giving him the gift of Da Vinci's paintings, and as a young boy, and them traveling to Boston and him being immersed into Arab literature and like writings, and taking on this depth of creativity and intellectual exploration at the same time in a place like Boston, and then traveling the world and allowing his art and his craft and his the character that was formed through those first 12 years and then matured through, coming to the U.S. and then traveling over the different parts of the world, and his writing just becoming this unique, what's the word where all the pictures and stuff come together in one mosaic of creativity and spirituality, activism and liberation, all wrapped up in a sweet bow of this incredible work. I respect him and adore him as a writer so much.
Yeah, I think that's one thing while reading the book, that he did such a good job of putting the reader, like just putting me in the setting of this prophet al-Mustafa, right? That at some points I had to pull myself back and remind myself that it's Khalil Gibran speaking. Like, it's such a, you know what I mean? Like, you get immersed with this character and the teachings, and then you pull yourself back a little bit, and it's like, all of that is coming out of Khalil Gibran, but it does sound, the setting of it is so sacred. He pulls the reader in such a sacred sanctuary that you automatically feel you're part of the people listening to this divine message being transmitted through the hand and pen of Khalil Gibran. And that is very powerful, and I think that's the craft, or part of the craft that you're speaking about, is to allow the reader, the person on the other end of the art, to allow them to be so immersed that they now feel that they have a direct experience themselves with the divine. So it's not only the artist, or it's not only Khalil Gibran having this direct experience with the divine in order to distill certain teachings or knowledge and whatnot, but also the people on the other side of this spectrum, the audience, can now have this direct experience, that they don't need a mediary. Khalil Gibran is no longer in the picture. That's what I'm trying to say. Right? So that was that reminder, or that shift of going out to remember that it was Khalil Gibran, and then going in and being immersed in it, was such a cool experience. And dare to say that times that's how I feel even reading sacred books, that there's this direct experience with the divine, and then there's this act of taking a step back and remembering at the same time that these words have came through a man's lips and a man's tongue and somebody's lungs pushing the air through. So it's like, it felt similar to that kind of feeling. It gave me the same vibe, the same sacred vibe, same awe, the state of awe as reading. Yeah.
How beautiful. I mean, it's interesting hearing you guys both express what you just shared. And there's a couple points, or just a couple things that kind of came up for me. So I don't know which order I'm going to start or who said what, but it's definitely both of you. So I'm just going to express. The first thing is a little bit about Khalil Gibran's background. I mean, there was a couple, to be completely honest, I was doing a bunch of PhD work, to anybody who's hearing this, as I told Osama and Antoine before, and just trying to catch up before doing deadlines, which was super intense. But the core concept that we're really talking about today was cultural competency. And what does competency actually look like? With Khalil Gibran, he was, and for sure somebody can comment or correct me here, but I do believe that he was a Maronite Christian. And that's at least what he was brought up to be. So I don't know what he was. I don't want to ever claim anybody of who they are or what they are. I don't even know who I am yet. I'm learning more about that self. But besides that, besides Christianity's influence, Islam influenced him, Sufism influenced him, mysticism from aspects of theosophy, Jungian psychology, all these aspects played a part. To even during 1910 and 1912, Gibran actually met Abdul Baha'i, which is the leader of the Baha'i faith. So you can see this person was looking for something. I mean, in my opinion, if somebody's searching and tapping the shoulders of a lot of aspects, they're in search of something. What that search is, I don't know. But it's funny because what you both were saying about this sensation that kind of goes beyond a label or beyond just words on a page. First off, the book is structured in a way where it's like on pain, on marriage, on friendship, and so on. And it reminds me of something that I wanted to share with you both and even present to you both and anybody else who's listening. In 1921, he was actually invited to a, I guess you can call it an interrogatory meeting, essentially, right in New York at St. Mark's Church in Bowery, which is funny because I passed by that building and I took a photo of that building so many times. I was always just intrigued by the structure of it. And this meeting was presented on one sole question: do we need a new world religion to unite the old religions? So as I'm hearing you both express, what is it that you guys are talking about? What is that thing that a lot of other people in the last 200 years are trying to, and today are still trying to etch towards, to connect it? And that's kind of this thread that I heard both of you express. So I throw that question back.
Wow. What a profound question. You know, in my attempt at throwing some words at this question, And it's just my thoughts that, like, I the best way I can describe this is I think there is already this sort of one religion that unites all the religions. And I think that's why the certain people in each religion who have dived into the aestheticism and the love in this whole relationship with the source of their religion that transcends the words that the religion and the books that the religion and the insights that the religion speaks of. There's a place, a state of being that exists at the primordial point of every religion, which is, I would dare say, a birthright of every single human being, and they have access to this point. And so whatever doorway they walk through, whatever religion or culture or tradition they come through, the basis of it is this one thing that we all share, which is this essence. And to give it words is to always still just be pointing at the unsayable, because it is not something, in my opinion, that can be fully expressed, that words can completely do it justice, but words, and as in every religion and every culture and tradition, will always and only be pointing at this state that is unsayable, this state that is more likened to, these words of love and these words of bliss and these words of mysticism and these words of Sufi and these words of Christian or Muslim, that they are all pointing to and evolving towards this oneness state that is that is the universal truth that I would say all religions are pointing at. And at the subtle level, those who have tasted that know it. But at the grossest level of those religions and faiths and traditions, we have contrasts and differences that will always be argued and always be fought over. And then some who have the capacity to do it will find the harmony in diversity. But those who really know of that thing that their religions are talking about, those who might be the mystics or the aesthetics of those faiths, they've tasted something that is much more than what they've read in a book. And you find that those faiths, those different faiths, who can be called the mystics, I mean, you can call them whatever you want to, but they speak in one voice, usually, is what I find. And that is the voice that is echoed here in Khalil's work.
Wow. That was so profound. And I agree. I echo the same message to answer the question, do we need a new religion, new tradition? Like you said, Antoine, I think there's enough of that, because even that, if it is not lived and if it's not experienced, it will turn into another dogma, just like all the traditions and religions have turned into another approach or way or solution to that question. Maybe it would be to go deeper into whatever gate, whatever tradition, whatever religion, not in a sense of becoming a fanatic, right? Because that's another end of that spectrum. But to truly experience it and know that what you said, Antoine, that unspeakable, know what that unspeakable is, know beyond the words, going beyond and deeper into it, to truly understand it, and then come to a point of experience and taste and knowing, so that the relationship is a direct relationship with the deepest part of who we are, and with life, capital L. To create something, or to stay on the gross level of things. I think even in the book, when Khalil Gibran was writing about Al-Mustafa yearning for his ship as it's coming, from the sea, he's seeing it through the mist, and he knew he's yearning for it with that passion. And as the Sufis say, with that ashq, with that fiery passion for that ship to come, for the home, for the memories, for it's as if he can smell it. He's seeing it. It's right there. And he knew that to stay is to crystallize. So, to me, reading that, to me, what that meant was to stay on that gross level and not to go deeper, or not to change and not to grow, not to move with this life as it's moving. It's to crystallize. It's to become like a rock or a crystal, beautiful crystal, but that's it. It's just right then and there, right? Not growing or anything like that, or moving forward. So that's pretty much the answer to that question, is what, when we go deeper into whatever gate, whatever path, whatever it is, and move towards that ship that's automatic, that's already coming towards us anyway, that's taking us home, and move to it with an open heart, as he wrote, his heart, the gates of his heart flung open, and moving towards that unspeakable source, the source of all things, then that path it becomes irrelevant, really. So I think what we might need is this deeper knowing, this to start to taste what that source is, and to go deeper in whatever it is that we decide to use as our path. Have it be an actual religion or tradition, or have it be a trade or a craft or poetry or art, drawing, business, creativity, whatever it is that we choose it to be, for us to be that path. And have it be relationships, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be an actual tradition and whatnot. But that is, I wonder if there's any transcript of that meeting or that they hold there. That'll be interesting to read also.
It's funny because I was trying to look that up. I just see a news clipping from a little paper, or an article of a paper, asking that question and presenting who's going to be there. And Khalil Gibran was going to be there, and the leader of the Baha'i faith were there. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but you can find bits and pieces of things that emerged in other writings, I feel, that came about in the years to come. And one of those, and I think both of you guys were expressing it, which led me to ponder almost another question, but first to kind of sit with something. A lot of times, within that question, do we need a new world religion to unite the old religions? The greatest doorknob to open a lot of doors for me has always been wonder. And wonder has been such a catalyst for a lot of things. So what would oneness look like, or what are the steps or the small kernels that one can essentially sow in the field of their lives, I beckon it has to do with wonder. That's an association, for me at least, that opened up so much in such a steadfast way. And the things that catch me in a marvelous fashion that lead me to wonder usually allow me to wander in such places to meet incredible human beings and have incredible experience, but it's usually lit by that. And then the question that I was kind of sitting with is, and with hearing you both express this, and I know we have like 5 more minutes, so this may be a huge question to think about or to give your one sentence or a few sentence perspectives, is, I mean, how can I word this? What, from both of your perspectives, could be the steps that one takes to access these states that I'm hearing you guys express or share in such a harmonious way?
Well, again, throwing the words that are on my heart into the space as offerings. I think for what I'm speaking about, that it gets that being, that person to that space, is, I like to, I guess, refer back to what Osama was saying earlier about whether it's your religion or your craft or your art, or your relationships, those things that are inside you that you feel compelled towards. And when you're doing them, they put you in the direction of a state that is beyond the activity itself. Almost a witnessing quality where the activity is happening through you, where you're not just creating, or you're not just being loving, but you are love in that moment. You have such a relationship to what you're up to in that moment with that thing, that there is an experience of transcendence. And I guess I should do my best to try and define what that word is when I'm saying transcendence, right? So the word transcend means to go beyond. But you, whoever's listening to this, might experience it or know of it likened to what the gymnast or the basketball player or the musician might speak to as this flow state, or in the zone, where these qualities seem to be coming through them, and yet they're at the same time feeling like they're the witness of these qualities. That state points to a state that is completely transcendental to the normal states of consciousness that we all experience. Whether it's sleeping, dreaming, or waking state of consciousness, there's a transcendental state of consciousness that is beyond those states and beyond the activity one is doing in that moment, whatever that activity might be, that taps into a state of being that the scriptures, that the mystics all describe as peace without understanding, or peace beyond our understanding, or blissfulness, complete blissfulness, or love. It's a state of being that cannot be mood made. I mean, you can read about it and you can have all manners of philosophy unfold from there, but this, what is spoken of, has to be lived. It's a way of being, it's a way of existing and experiencing in which your physiology reaches or surrenders to a level of functioning where this state of being comes to the surface of your awareness in such a way that you completely feel raptured up in this love, in this refinement, in this surrender that these mystics seem to be pointing to or talking about in the multiple religions and in different work. The last thing I'll say about this, as far as techniques that allow people to get there, a lot of people, of course, use things like meditation. They use music, they use their art, they refine their craft, and somehow in this refinement of their craft, it allows them to transcend even the activity of creating the craft and is a gateway into that state. The medical person that's going to save lives, somehow they slip up or surrender into this state of being that allows them to tap into it. This state is a birthright of every being that is on the planet, and it's just a matter of our nervous systems letting go of a lot of the trauma, stress, and narratives that have been built on top of it, so that it can't get back to its natural state of being, which is that state that is connected to the divine. I guess that's the last thing I'll say about it.
Wow. I couldn't agree more. And that was pretty much the first thing that came to mind when you asked that question, Abe. The first thing that came to mind is this stillness. Because the only thing that I can speak of, the only thing that I can speak about is my experience in this. And like you said, Antoine, it's that meditation. It's to allow myself to be still in order to dive in. For majority of us, we go living our lives outwardly. Most of our actions, most of our thoughts, everything that we tend to do living this life is outside. And we normally don't take the time and spend these moments to reflect back inwardly. And I feel that having that being the first step, all other steps stem from there as far as what needs to come up. Because like you said, Antoine, it is a lived experience, and each soul has its own lived experience that has to go through. So having that being the first thing, and just focusing on that being the first thing without putting stages or next step or the step after that and step 3, 4, 5, right? Just focusing on that first thing would be the most beneficial and the correct action. It will be the right action to take. And that is a daily action. Like, even for somebody who's been meditating for years, each day sitting for meditation, it's like sitting for meditation for the first time. It's a because it's always the same. It's not like, oh, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's every day, every time it's the first time. And also for that wonder that you spoke about, Abe, which was beautiful. It does seem that each soul is like a bee, just looking for its queen, looking for its hive, and sometimes that bee becomes disoriented. And taking the time to reorient ourselves in order to find within ourselves that magnetic pull towards that queen. And from there, it's just surrendering and allowing ourselves to follow that magnetic field that's pulling us in that direction. So I would say, yeah, that stillness and that surrender to allow for that next right action, next right step to emerges, and trusting fully that it will lead, that it will not go astray, that bee will not go lost, but it will reach its hive and its destination, and it will reach its queen and bliss out in that buzzing of the hive. That's that vibration. Yeah, that's what I would say about that.
Can I read a little something that I think somehow might relate to what we just said from his book? What page is this? I think this is page 64. And where should I start on page 63? And what is it? Be fragments of your. He started off speaking about freedom. Maybe I'll just read 63 and 64 since it's both so short. And the orator said, "Speak to us of freedom." And he answered, "At the city gate and by your fireside, I've seen you prostrate yourself and worship your own freedom, even as slaves humble themselves before a tyrant and praise him though he slays them. In the grove of the temple and in the shadow of the citadel, I have seen the freest among you wear their freedom as a yoke and a handcuff, and my heart bleed within me. For you can only be free when even the desire of seeking freedom becomes a harness to you." Did I read that right? "And my heart bled within me. For you can only be free when even the desire of seeking freedom becomes a harness to you. And when you cease to speak of freedom..." Does anyone have this page? Because I think I'm... Can you finish it for me? Because my computer is acting weird.
"And my heart bled within me, for you can only be free when even the desire of seeking freedom becomes a harness to you, and when you cease to speak of freedom as a goal and a fulfillment. You shall be free indeed when your days are not without a care, nor your nights without a want and a grief, but rather when these things griddle your life, and yet you rise above them naked and unbound."
For me, this is speaking of transcendence, where somehow the seeking, you've even gone beyond the seeking. You've gone beyond the... how would you guys interpret or unfold what he's saying right there in this space?
Yeah, spot on. It's when, to me, that ties to the first thing that he said when he was talking about love. Love's desires only to fulfill itself. And that ties into this part right here about freedom, where it's so... The desire is no longer because it is completely embodied and lived. Yeah, that's how that translates to me. That's how I understand it as. Which is in a sense transcendence. Which is in a sense, even on experiential way, similar to when you're meditating. When we're meditating and you're constantly looking for that transcendence point, it's oftentimes missed. It is right when you completely forget about it that it comes here and grabs you in its fullness. And right then and there, you're in that transcendent state. And you come out of it as if you're in shock. What just happened? What just grabbed me? So in the midst of it, in the heart of hearts of it, in the bullseye of it, it no longer exists. It's all one.
Beautifully expressed, bro.
Beautiful. It's so funny. It's interesting because I feel like we went in circles and circles and circles to explain the same kernel we were always trying to explain in such a beautiful way. And I am left with awe and wonder. So I appreciate all of the expressions that I heard tonight between us all. And we're already 41 minutes in, so I'm going to wrap here. But I have to say, whoever is listening up until this point, which I should have said in the beginning, Wednesday, the 27th of March, we are going to be meeting as community at 8 p.m. Eastern, the Open Book Club. If you want to find access to it, honestly, one of the best ways to do that is if you go to babalilm.org. That's BABALILM.org. And you can certainly find access there. Once you visit our homepage, you can just go to programs and you'll be able to click through then and there. So if this left you with questions, if this left you with curiosity, with an open mind, with wanting to know a little bit more, come on Wednesday.